You've spent time, money, and effort decorating your living room. So why doesn't it feel right? It's probably because of a few sneaky design mistakes. Today, we're diving into all 21 common design mistakes and how to fix them, so you can finally create a space that actually feels inviting. Have you ever seen a living room where the sofa looks like it's swallowing the space whole? Or the coffee table is so small it might as well be a coaster? It usually happens when people buy furniture without measuring, or fall in love with a piece in the showroom without considering how it will fit at home. Here's an easy trick. Think about how much breathing room your furniture needs. For example, your sofa should comfortably fit along a wall without crowding corners or doorways, leaving at least 18 inches or about 45 centimeters of wall space on each side. Likewise, choose pieces that don't force you or your guests to squeeze by every time they move around. If your space is smaller, consider furniture with slimmer profiles and visible legs. They'll make the room feel much more spacious. If the room is large, bulkier, grounded furniture can help anchor the space, preventing it from feeling empty or sparse. Now, what do you do if you do have a piece that is slightly too small for the room? You can still use it, just don't leave it stranded. For example, this sofa alone is on the smaller side, but pair it with a floor lamp, a plant, armchair, and coffee table, and it all comes together. Even if your furniture fits your space, it can still look off if the sizes between pieces aren't balanced. That is where the 2/3 rule comes in, a design guideline based on the golden ratio, a pleasing proportion found everywhere from nature to famous architecture. When shopping for furniture, try to keep this in mind. For example, your sofa should be about 2/3 the width of the wall behind it. Your coffee table should be 2/3 the width of your sofa. And your TV, you guessed it, 2/3 the width of the unit under it. This keeps everything looking balanced, rather than like you accidentally bought dollhouse furniture or got the XXL version of everything. Now, it is important to keep in mind that this is just a starting point, and I find that usually anywhere between half to 3/4 can also work well. Another golden rule: the base should always be wider than what is on top of it. For example, your TV stand should always be bigger than your TV, because otherwise it will look awkward. And your rug should be at least 15 centimeters wider than your sofa on each side, because you want it to ground all your seating, not randomly floating in space. Mounting your TV too high is like sitting in the front row of the cinemas, except you're at home and no one is handing out popcorn to make up for the neck pain. It is one of those common mistakes people don't realize is an issue until they're stuck craning their necks every time they turn the TV on. In fact, it is such a common issue that there's a whole subreddit dedicated to it. Besides being extremely uncomfortable, a too high TV throws off the balance of the room as it pulls the eye awkwardly to the top of the room. This happens a lot when people mount their TV above a fireplace, but in reality, it makes the room look unbalanced. So, what is the right placement? Ideally, the center of your TV should be at eye level when you're seated, which typically means around 42 to 48 inches from the floor to the middle of the screen. Now, if you're in a situation where your TV has to go above your fireplace, consider a mantle mount that allows you to pull it down when watching and push it back up when not in use. If you have the flexibility, mounting your TV on a different wall, maybe one perpendicular to the fireplace, is a great option. Or if space is tight, placing it to the side of the fireplace at a comfortable height is another option. You can even get a framed TV, which basically acts like a painting, so you can get away with installing it a bit higher than normal, because it will look like an artwork. When I go about decorating a living room, or any room for that matter, I like to think of it like designing a city skyline. What makes a skyline interesting? It isn't a bunch of identical buildings. It is a mix of towering skyscrapers, mid-rises, and smaller structures. Your living room should be the same. If all you've got is a sofa, a coffee table, and a few squat accessories, the whole space is bound to feel bottom-heavy, like it is sinking into the floor. Luckily, there's an easy fix. All you have to do is bring in some vertical variety, add in some floor lamps, tall plants, wall sconces, curtains that extend way past the window frame, bookshelves, or even an oversized piece of art can help pull the eye upward and add dimension. A good way to approach this is by thinking in layers. Foundational pieces, your sofas, rugs, and large furniture. Mid-level elements like your coffee tables, chairs, and side table. And vertical players, your lamps, shelves, art, curtains, and tall plants. If you have elements from each of these categories, you'll be well on your way to creating an interesting and layered space. Continuing on from the idea of layering heights, another mistake I often see is a general lack of visual weight distribution. In the same vein as not mixing heights, if all the big, heavy furniture is shoved to one side of the room, it will feel lopsided. Now, when we talk about visual weight, we're not referring to the actual weight of furniture. Don't worry, I'm not suggesting you to take a scale to your coffee table. It is all about how certain pieces feel lighter or heavier in the room. A chunky sofa, for example, is likely going to feel heavier than a sofa in the same size with legs. So, how do you fix it? If your space feels like it's leaning to one side, it is time to redistribute the heavy items. Say if you have a bulky sofa in one corner, try to balance it out with something of similar visual weight on the other side. But sometimes, the problem isn't too much weight on one side. Rather, it is that everything in the room is heavy. If that is the case, you can introduce some lighter pieces to create that feeling of airiness. Look for glass, metal, or furniture with sleek, slender legs. These types of pieces will visually lighten the space and stop it from feeling suffocating. One of the secrets to a well-balanced living room is to mix up the shapes. A lot of living rooms today naturally lean heavy on straight lines. Boxy sofas, rectangular or square coffee tables, rectangular bookshelves, rectangular rugs, and rectangular layout. But when everything has the same angular structure, rooms start feeling visually stiff and almost like a grid. The thing that is missing is a bit of contrast in shapes. So to fix this, introduce curves and organic shapes because it will help break up all that structure and make the space feel much more inviting. An easy way to do this is to swap out a few key pieces. Maybe swap the rectangular coffee table for a round one, or add in a curved armchair to soften things up. You can also get arch mirrors, vases, and sculptural lighting. By the way, if you're feeling stuck with your living room and keep second-guessing every choice, check out my Timeless Living Room Design course. It teaches you the cozy method, a simple way to design a living room that looks great, feels cohesive, and actually fits your life. You can check it out here or in the description below. I'm talking specifically about bigger living rooms, and I get it. It seems like the easiest way to make your living room feel even bigger. But guess what? Instead of creating an open, airy space, you'll often be left with a weird, empty void in the middle of your room and a seating arrangement that feels, well, just as inviting as a waiting room. The fix? Bring your furniture inward. You don't want your guests sitting against the walls while shouting across the room, right? I usually start with a sofa in the middle of the room or designated zone in an open plan area, and then I'll arrange armchairs around the sofa to make a conversational setting. This will instantly make your space feel more intimate. If you've got a bigger room, don't just leave the extra space surrounding your seating arrangement hanging there awkwardly. Put it to use. A cozy reading nook, a console table, or even a plant corner are great uses of space and will make your living room feel much more balanced. Trust me, once you give your furniture just a little breathing room, your living room will feel way more inviting. Plus, no more yelling across the room to have a conversation. Nothing ruins a space faster than forcing people to shimmy sideways between furniture or do a three-point turn just to sit down. Here's the deal. Walkways matter. You need at least 24 inches of clearance around all furniture pieces in smaller spaces, and 36 inches for main pathways. That way, people can actually move without knocking over a lamp or stepping on someone else's toes. Also be mindful of doors. There's nothing more annoying than realizing your armchairs are placed in a way that means the patio doors only open halfway. And if you have to shimmy past furniture to get to another room, it is time to rethink your layout. Keep those walkways open, give your furniture some breathing room, and make sure no one has to climb over an ottoman just to leave the room. Now, I know that layout can be tricky, so if you want an easy way to plan your space and avoid these mistakes, I've put together a free room layout guide that helps you map out your living room like a pro. You can grab it in the description below. open plan living. Airy, expansive spaces are the dream, right? Maybe not always. Since open plan spaces don't come with built-in boundaries, you have to create your own. Now, the easiest way to do this is to use rock. A large rock under your seating area instantly signals that that is a designated living area. Furniture placement can also help carve out different areas. For example, you can use the back of sofas, consoles, or bookshelves as dividers. If you have a particularly large space, sectionals are great as they'll naturally carve out a seating area. Open shelving is also good as it creates zones without blocking light. And let's not forget lighting. A pendant light over a dining table or a floor lamp next to a sofa is a way that you can visually separate zones. We're about halfway through the list. So far, we've covered sizing, balance, and layout mistakes. Next up, we're getting into the styling and finishing touches that will take your living room from basic to beautifully curated. Buying all your furniture from one store might seem like a safe bet. Everything matches, it is easy, and boom, your living room is done. But here's the problem. It ends up looking like a showroom instead of, an actual home. It is like buying the mannequin's entire outfit at a clothing store. Sure, it looks fine, but where's the personality? A living room should feel collected over time, not like it was put together in a single afternoon. That means pairing a modern sofa with a vintage coffee table, mixing wood tones, or throwing in an unexpected accent chair. And if you're worried it will look chaotic, don't be. Just keep a few common threads like a cohesive color palette and repeating materials so everything still feels intentional. And don't forget the finishing touches. Books, art, travel finds, or anything that makes your space feel like you. Because at the end of the day, your living room should look like it belongs to a real person, not a showroom display with the price tag still attached. If everything in your space is smooth, flat, and all one note, it is not going to feel exciting. No depth, no contrast, no oomph. Unfortunately, a lot of spaces end up looking like this with the proliferation of fast furniture. It is all made from MDF with the same smooth coating. So what do you do instead? Mix materials and textures. You need a little matte with your glossy, some soft with your hard, and rough with smooth. Things like a chunky knit throw draped over a sleek leather sofa, a woven jute rug grounding a glass coffee table, or a rustic wood console with a polished ceramic lamp. Aim for a mix of 5 different materials, and make sure they actually work together. The goal is a space that feels layered and interesting, like it came together over time, not like you panic bought everything in an hour. If you've ever walked into a room where everything seems to blur into one dull palette, you've seen the power of a lack of contrast in action. If you think about contrast simply, it boils down to using opposites to create interest. Now, the easiest way to do this is through color. Pairing light and dark tones like a pale wall against a rich sofa can elevate a space. But it is not just about light versus dark. It is also about mixing warm and cool tones. But contrast also goes beyond color. Think textures as well, like a leather sofa against a textured rug or a velvet fabric against a wool rug. Shapes are another big player. What you don't want is make everything angular. So mix in some rounded elements or interesting shapes. And even finishes play a part. Matte against glossy, soft fabric against shiny metal. All these small opposites work together to create a space that feels layered rather than a collection of matching pieces. I've seen a lot of people like to add a pop of color to their neutral living rooms to make them more interesting or vibrant. You're probably thinking, that is a great idea, isn't it? And it definitely can be. The issue is that most people fall into the matchy-matchy trap, where they buy 4 identical throw pillows in the exact same shade and think they've nailed the accent color game. Not at all. That just makes your space look flat and overly staged. Why? Because when everything in a room is neutral, and you add a color, that color will demand attention. So instead of 4 identical pillows, mix it up. Let's say you want a green accent color. Use various shades of it in different materials spread out across the living room. This layering makes your color palette feels intentional, not forced. You need at least 3 touches of it spread out in different forms. In summary, never buy more than 2 of the same color cushion. Once you introduce a color, repeat it elsewhere on at least 3 different objects in a single room. And thirdly, when you repeat a color, make sure the shade or texture is varied. Another common living room mistake is not repeating design elements throughout the space, which makes living room feel random and disconnected. Think of repetition as the glue that ties your space together. Repeating colors, materials, shapes, or finishes will help you create a sense of flow. Here, for example, the sofa and armchair was completely lost. But just by adding a rug that echoes both color in different shade and texture, it instantly looked much more put together. If you have brass accents on an armchair, bring in brass on a floor lamp, wall sconces, or cabinet handles. This subtle repetition will help move your eye through the space, which makes everything feels more cohesive. That said, too much repetition can also backfire. You don't want everything to look the exact same. So like what I was just saying before with a pop of color, use different tones of blue if you're repeating blue. Or if you're repeating the same shade, use different texture of it. If you're struggling with decorating, check out our in-depth guide to a beautiful home with the decorating checklist inside to help you with this. You can access them for free here or down below. When it comes to styling your living room, less really is more, especially when it comes to small accessories. Sure, those tiny trinkets and cute decor items may seem harmless, but before you know it, your space may be overrun with visual clutter. But the real problem with small accessories is that they often lack the ability to make a big impact on its own. So we end up using too much of them, and this just makes your living room feel messy, even if each accessory is lovely on its own. So what to do? Use fewer, bigger statement pieces instead. Don't fill every surface with tiny objects. I also find that it helps to think of accessories as the seasoning rather than the main course. A pinch of salt enhances a dish, but too much will completely ruin the dish itself. So try to do a few well-placed intentional accessories. It all comes down to being more intentional. If you're hanging your curtains too low, you're basically shortchanging your living room. It'll make the ceilings look shorter and overall make your room feel cramped. You'll be amazed at how much higher ceilings and bigger windows can look just by hanging your curtains correctly. What most people do is mount their curtain rods too close to the window frame, and this often happens because people buy curtains that are too short. What you should do instead is hang the rod much higher, about halfway to 2/3 of the way between the top of your window and the ceiling. It'll trick your eye into thinking your windows are taller and your ceilings are higher, a bit like a facelift. On the topic of curtains, another common mistake are panels that are too narrow. Curtains need to be 2 times the width of your windows to achieve that gathered, luxurious look. You want them to appear full and rich, not stretched thin and hardly able to cover your windows. So for example, if your window is 2 meters wide, your curtain panel should be at least 4 meters wide of fabric, or 2 meters per panel if you're using 2. One lonely ceiling light isn't going to cut it. You may have heard about this on TikTok, the no big light trend. It is because they create harsh shadows, wash out textures, and leave corners of living rooms looking like forgotten caves. Instead, you need layers, a mix of ambient, task, and accent lighting to create depth and atmosphere. Think of it like setting the stage for the space. Start with your ambient lighting. This could be a pendant light, recessed lighting, or a chandelier. Next, bring in task lighting, something functional like a reading lamp next to your sofa or a table lamp. Then add in accent lighting for drama. Wall sconces or LED strips behind shelving can highlight architectural details. This is called layering lighting, and you want to do it in every room, not just your living room. On the topic of lighting, another big mistake is using the wrong color temperature. Get it right and your space will feel warm, inviting, and cozy. Get it wrong and your living room will look like a sterile hospital waiting area. The sweet spot for living room lighting is somewhere up to 4000 Kelvin. At the lower end, you get a warm golden glow, which is perfect for cozying up in the evening. Around 3000 Kelvin, you hit a soft white that still feels warm but with a bit more clarity. Go too high, anything above 4000 Kelvin, and you're venturing into cool bluish territory, which is great for offices but makes living room feel a bit clinical. Another light temperature mistake is mixing different ones in the same room. If one lamp has a warm yellow glow and another has a bright white light, they will clash. To keep things cohesive, buy the same temperature of bulbs for all your fixtures. Even better, get the same temperature in the same brand, cause then you'll know there won't be any discrepancy. Not measuring before buying furniture is like trying to buy shoes without checking the size. You might get lucky, but chances are it is not going to work out. Before you start shopping, grab a tape measure and write down the dimensions of your space, including walls, windows, and existing furniture. Then when you find a piece you love, compare its size to what will actually work in your space, not just what looks good in store or online. You can also try a digital floor planning tool like Magic Plan, Floor Planner, or Rayon. All of these applications allow you to drag and drop furniture into a virtual version of your living room, so you can see if the sectional is going to work. Otherwise, you can use masking tape to physically outline the dimensions of your furniture directly on the floor. Then you'll have an actual sense of the scale. No matter how beautifully designed your space is, clutter will always steal the show, in the worst way possible. People never design for enough storage, but we all have so many belongings. A great principle to follow is Lu Wei's 2-to-8 rule, which suggests that 80% of your belongings should be in closed storage, with only 20% left on display. Now, if you have kids or just love your decorative objects, this might be a bit unrealistic. But the key takeaway is that everything should have a designated place. One of the best ways to sneak in storage is with a long, low unit, whether it is a modular IKEA Besta setup or a custom-built piece. Not only does it give you tons of storage, but it can also double as a bench, a display surface, or even a spot for drinks and coffee. If your living room is on the smaller side, think vertically. Tall bookshelves, mounted cabinets, or even floating shelves can keep clutter off the floor while making your ceilings look higher. And don't forget underutilized spaces, like that awkward gap under your sofa. It is perfect for rollout bins. And if you need extra seating, a storage ottoman or sofa with hidden compartments can work wonders. And finally, baskets are your best friend. Not only do they look good, but they're perfect for stashing away toys, blankets, or anything else that makes living rooms look messy. If you're avoiding your own sofa because it is uncomfortable, something has gone wrong. Prioritizing looks over comfort is one of the biggest design mistakes you can make, which is why we're ending this video with this. Let's talk about those beautiful but impractical furniture choice. White sofas in homes with kids or pets, where you'll spend more time scrubbing than sitting. Leather couches in humid climates, prepared to peel yourself off every time you sit down. And let's not forget the ultra-low, deep-seated sofas that look effortlessly chic in magazine spreads, but end up with everyone awkwardly sitting on the edge. The secret to a well-designed living room is balance. Yes, aesthetics matter, but so does the way your space functions in real life. Kid and pet-friendly fabrics, sufficient back support, and materials that actually work in your climate. A stylish sofa looks great, but one that looks good and makes you want to sink in with a book and a cup of coffee, that is the real win. Here's the problem. Most design approaches start with aesthetics and then try to fit your life around them. The cozy method that I teach in my courses flips this completely. We start with how you actually live, then build a beautiful home around that reality. And that's it, all 21 living room design mistakes. Which of these mistakes you have spotted in your own home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you're tackling first. If you enjoyed this video, check out this video on 10 reasons why your home look off, and this video on how to make your home look cohesive. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.